Greetings from Wisdom Words, a peaceful place to pause and reflect. One story at a time, we examine timeless teachings about life, serenity, and purpose here. So, pause, inhale, and let's get started. The mask we put on. Do you know what's amusing? Even when we're not, we all claim to be all right. We pretend everything is well as we smile, nod, and go about our days, but we're actually carrying agony that we keep to ourselves. It might be heartbreak. It might be disappointment. You might not even be able to articulate it. But you push it down rather than face it. I'm fine, you reassure yourself. You keep going in the hopes that everything will be resolved in time. The fact is that what you continue to act as though doesn't hurt doesn't get better with time. What you don't want to feel, you can't change. The coziness of acting. Curiously, it can feel safer to pretend than to recover. Since mending is acknowledging that something is flawed. And it is frightful. Telling them you're fine allows you to maintain control. There's no need to explain. You are not required to cry. You don't need to appear helpless. However, the agony doesn't go away when you pretend. It simply buries it deeper and deeper until it begins to seep out in unexpected ways. Little things make you angry. You're constantly exhausted. You become disinterested in the things you once loved. You are carrying too much for too long, not being fine. A brief narrative, the burden we bear. Sarah was a girl I used to know. She was the type of person who would constantly have a smile on her face, reassure others, joke around, and keep things light. She was crumbling on the inside, but you wouldn't know it. She kept the breakup of her relationship a secret. She simply said, "It's all right. I'm going on." However, she would go through old messages every night and relive the mistakes. People continued to tell her, "You're so strong," as the months passed. However, she was exhausted and not powerful. She didn't cry until she was sitting by herself in her car one quiet evening. She began to recover at that same moment when she stopped acting. The process of healing took time. But honesty was the first step. The reason we act. The world praises steadiness, so we act as though everything is fine. We're told to be tough, to keep smiling, and to go on. Nobody shows us how to endure discomfort while sitting. We thus learn to conceal it. We dismiss it with a laugh. For example, it is what it is. However, your heart is whispering to you, "I'm not okay." The irony is that the instant you quit acting, you begin to recover. When you acknowledge that "I'm not fine, but I want to be," the barrier you put up around your heart is broken by that little fact. It allows light to enter. The price of acting. There is a cost to pretending. You lose your peace in the process. You lose energy as a result. You lose out on the opportunity to build genuine connections with others. Since nobody can love you for who you are, if you continue to show them your true self, when you say "I'm fine" again and over, people learn not to ask from you. You gradually begin to fade behind your own mask. You turn into a different version of yourself that exists only to make other people comfortable, not for you. The ability to feel. Moving on fast is not the goal of healing. It involves giving oneself permission to experience all of the emotions you have been suppressing. Give yourself permission to cry. Give yourself a break. Acknowledge that the pain is still there. You don't always have to be strong. All you have to do is be honest. Saying "I'm not okay right now" has its own power. Being truthful gives one freedom. Because you are set free by the truth, even when it hurts. A time to think. Thus, I would like you to consider, when was the last time you pretended to be okay when you weren't? What would happen if you told the truth instead, just once? You might cry. Perhaps you would at last take a breath. Perhaps you would begin to recover. It's not necessary for you to be flawless. All you need to do is quit acting like you do. A calm takeaway. Ignoring your pain does not lead to healing. It results from respecting it. You might be able to get through the day by acting as though nothing is wrong. However, acknowledging that you're not okay is what makes you better. Thus, when all is calm tonight, remove the mask. Give yourself permission to be human. You are not required to be fine. You simply must be truthful. And that's where recovery starts. We will discuss the reasons for our fear of vulnerability in the upcoming chapter, and how being visible, despite your imperfection, can turn into your strongest suit. The apprehension of being at risk. Most individuals believe that being vulnerable equates to being weak. Showing the world what's truly happening inside of us is actually one of the most difficult things we will ever learn. It feels risky to let someone notice our suffering, so we conceal it behind jokes, smiles, and casual talk. It entails taking a chance on judgment. It entails losing command. This is who I truly am, and you have to hope that the other person doesn't go. Many of us are stuck because of that dread. We don't feel comfortable enough to recover, not because we are incapable of doing so. Why we are afraid of being seen? We learn early on that feelings make us softer. We hear phrases like "be strong" and "don't cry." Thus, we are raised to believe that strength comes from stillness. However, strength has nothing to do with concealment. It concerns the amount of truth you can maintain without fracturing. Being vulnerable allows others to see the true you, the one who still believes in love despite the pain, hopes, and hurts. That isn't a sign of weakness. That is bravery. An account concerning walls. An individual by the name of Daniel lost his sibling in an accident. He kept it to himself for years. He told everyone he was doing well, worked hard, and smiled. However, he would sit quietly every night and gaze at the same vacant chair at his kitchen table. He simply constructed barriers around the suffering, which persisted. "Dad, do you miss Uncle Ben?" his daughter asked him one day. He stopped. Even though the query was so straightforward, it opened a door. He cried after saying, "Yes, I do," for the first time in years. His recovery started that evening. His decision to cease hiding was not because he stopped hurting. The bond that we all desire. We believe that people adore us because of our strength. But our honesty is what people truly adore. Our common humanity. Allowing someone to witness your struggle serves as a reminder that you are not alone. And genuine connection takes place in that area of truth. When was the last time you heard something so intimate, something honest and unvarnished? Did you believe they were less important? Or did you sense a stronger bond with them? Vulnerability does just that. Where quiet creates walls, it creates bridges. But what if they don't comprehend? Naturally, not everyone will take your candor well. Not everyone will understand. Some will even look the other way. However, keep in mind that their response reveals more about them than it does about you. To appease other people, you don't tell the truth. To set yourself free, you share it. The goal of healing is to finally understand oneself, not to be understood by others. A calm activity for you. Try this tonight while you're by yourself. Consider one item you've been doing as though it doesn't hurt. Put it in writing. No explanations, no filters. Next, ask yourself, if I disclose the truth about this, what do I fear will happen? You may discover that the fear weighs more than the reality. Because you remove its ability to dominate you once you say it, even if it's just to yourself. The calm strength of releasing. Being vulnerable does not imply collapsing. It entails letting your heart breathe again and opening up. It's not necessary to tell everyone everything. However, you are worthy of being truthful with yourself. The burden of performance is lifted when you quit acting. You begin to live. And healing breathes its first real breath in that silent honesty. A basic reality to keep in mind. When you are authentic rather than flawless, the people who are supposed to adore you will love you more. When you come out of hiding, they will remain. When you stop acting, they will pay attention. Permit them. Because each time you allow someone to see you in your true form, you reaffirm to your heart that it's okay to be whole. We'll look at how forgiveness, particularly forgiveness of oneself, can be the difference between suffering and serenity in the upcoming chapter. The silent practice of self-forgiveness. You must forgive yourself before you can truly go on. Not because you're broken. Not for blunders. But for being a human. We frequently discuss forgiving people and letting go of resentment and grudges. However, we hardly ever discuss the concept of self-forgiveness. And occasionally, that is the most difficult forgiving of all. Because the guilt doesn't simply go away whether you're the one who injured someone by staying too long, saying too little, or leaving too soon. It persists. In the back of your mind, it murmurs, "You should have known better." And most individuals get stuck there. The weight of remorse. Reliving the past might make you feel a certain weight. You keep revisiting the same memories, wondering what may have happened if you had taken one different action. However, remorse is a vicious cycle that never ends. It keeps you caught up in a moment that has passed. You cannot recover in an environment that continuously causes you pain. You're not absolving yourself of what transpired just because you forgive yourself. It indicates that you're at last prepared to quit punishing yourself for it. Because you have already paid the price in the form of silence, tears, and restless nights. You no longer owe your life suffering. An account of letting go. A man by the name of Alex left a woman who was devoted to him. It was the correct thing to do. He persuaded himself he needed space and wasn't ready. However, the guilt followed him around after he understood what he had lost years earlier. He often made comparisons to her whenever he met someone new. There was always a part of him that thought he didn't deserve to laugh. He was once informed by a buddy, "You can't punish yourself into peace." He remembered their words. He wrote a letter to himself that evening, not to her. He wrote the facts, the explanations, and the apologies that he had been terrified to express. "I forgive you for not knowing what you didn't know," he wrote at the end. He sobbed. But he slept for the first time in years. Forgiveness does just that. It lets go of the part of you that has been pleading for a break. The myths regarding pardoning. Forgiveness is frequently equated with forgetting. It doesn't. To forgive is to recall without self-loathing. "Yes, I did that, but I'm not that person anymore," is what it means. You've changed. You now know. And you would have made different decisions if you had the same wisdom back then as you do now. Growth is demonstrated by that realization alone. And the slow-motion manifestation of healing is growth. The reason we wait. Because we believe we deserve it, we cling to our guilt. As a means of demonstrating our concern, it feels like punishment. However, suffering doesn't improve you as a person. You simply can't become one because of that. Holding on to the version of yourself that caused you pain will prevent you from healing. You must give that version time to relax. Consider it this way. Would you talk to a buddy the same way you talk to yourself? Would you tell them that one mistake doesn't merit them being happy? Obviously not. What is the reason for your self-talk? You cannot heal by hating yourself. An exercise in reflection. Take a moment to close your eyes. Consider the one thing for which you have never forgiven yourself. Imagine now that a loved one committed the same error. What would you say to them? Do you think they're not worthy? Or would you tell them that, given the circumstances, they were making the most of what they had? Now say those same sentences to yourself in a whisper. You should be treated with the same kindness that you show others. The real story of leaving. It is not necessary to forget the past in order to forgive oneself. That entails accepting it. Saying "I'm done carrying this" is what it means. Because carrying it merely perpetuates the grief rather than honoring it. When you choose to show yourself the same compassion that you have been hoping for from others, healing starts. A calm takeaway. The person you were in the past lacked the clarity you currently possess. They made decisions based on optimism, perplexity, or fear. And that's all right. Being flawless is not the purpose of life. Learning, falling, forgiving, and trying again with a gentler heart are the goals. So, if you're still awake tonight because of the past, "I forgive you," you say in a whisper while covering your heart. You gave it your all. And with sincerity. Because something will change inside of you the instant you do. Something soft. Something for nothing. Your soul is letting forth that sound. We'll discuss how healing isn't a straight line in the upcoming chapter and why it's acceptable to take a stride forward and 2 steps back. Because that is still progress sometimes. There is no straight line to healing. We prefer to think of healing as a sequential process whereby the pain strikes, we cry, think, and develop, and eventually it disappears. However, genuine healing is not time-bound. It's disorganized. It's not predictable. On certain days, you feel calm and powerful. On other days, it hits you anew, as if you're starting over. And that's all right. Because avoiding pain isn't the goal of healing. The goal is to learn how to live despite the pain. But moving on myth. You just need to move on is a common saying. However, forgetting does not equate to moving on. It entails learning a new way to carry the memory. It entails discovering one morning that the agony no longer governs you as it once did. Even while you still feel it, it no longer defines who you are. Instead of being a straight route, healing is more like waves, some of which are soothing and others of which are hard, but they all lead to new places. An account of falling back. A woman by the name of Emily lost her father. She used the stages of grieving as a checklist, journaling, trying therapy, crying for weeks, and even taking trips to clear her mind. She felt well months later, until she heard a song her dad used to hum while driving one afternoon when she entered a cafe. All of the progress she believed she had made abruptly disappeared. "I thought I was over this," she whispered as she sat there with tears running down her cheeks. She wasn't broken, though. She was getting better. That instance was evidence of love, not weakness. You return it till it no longer feels like agony but rather like remembrance, rather than relapsing into grief. Healing takes place in silence. Sometimes you won't notice it. It won't feel like it's occurring right now. Healing infiltrates subtly through minor decisions. When you choose to get out of bed despite the pain. When you respond to an SMS from a friend. When you chuckle once again and acknowledge that this time it's genuine. That is therapeutic. Not really dramatic. Not too loud. Simply steady, kind, and human. Reasons for feeling stuck at times. When old scars reappear and you begin to doubt your progress, there will be days when you feel like you're not making any headway. The key point is that reliving pain does not equate to failing. "I'm ready to look at this again, with more understanding," is what your mind is telling you. You approach past wounds with a little more insight each time they resurface. And even if it doesn't seem like it, that is growth. The patience lesson. Healing cannot be hurried. It cannot be scheduled. All you can do is make room for it to develop. When you want to fix everything, sometimes that means taking a break. Sometimes you have to forgive yourself repeatedly until it becomes ingrained. Healing requires patience, but it also requests it. A thought for you. Consider this. For me now, what does a healing mean? Is it about learning to live with things peacefully or about letting go of something? Because forgetting what happened isn't always a necessary part of mending. Sometimes it entails deciding to go on despite acknowledging that it did occur. The story isn't erased. Simply cease allowing it to dictate the conclusion. A kind reminder. You won't be healed when you wake up one morning. The small things that used to break you will now pass through you gently, as you will notice. That music will make you smile rather than cry. When you think of their name, you will experience warmth rather than agony. That is therapeutic. Even while you could still have scars, they don't define who you are. They indicate that you made it through. The Plant and the Storm, a short story. I heard this statement once. Watering a plant more vigorously does not necessarily result in faster growth. Healing cannot be compelled. The only things you can give yourself are patience, light, and rest. Something is still taking root inside of you even when it's raining and the earth feels heavy. When you look back peacefully one day, you'll see that you've become stronger than the storm. A convenient takeaway. There is no end to healing. It has a rhythm, going up and down and back and forth. Therefore, treat yourself with kindness on the days when you lose it. On the days when you manage to keep your composure, celebrate. Because both days are important. The 2 days belong to the same journey. We'll discuss how to restore your peace in the upcoming chapter, including how to move on, love again, and trust life without losing the compassion that grief previously attempted to rob you of. Getting your peace back. After all the sobbing, the questioning, and the restless nights, there comes a time when you begin to long for quiet more than answers. You ask, "What now?" instead of, "Why did it happen?" Real healing starts at that point. When the pain quits ruling you, not when it goes away. Because ignoring what broke you isn't the definition of serenity. It's about choosing to relax while remembering. The transition from life to survival. Peace might be unsettling after you've been in pain for a while. It seems weird when things finally stop hurting since you've been waiting for the next wave of pain for months or even years. That's silent? It seems almost suspicious. But that's because your heart has spent too much time in survival mode. Calm is strange to someone accustomed to chaos. Trusting it takes time. Therefore, practice self-compassion. Peace comes in little, steady bursts rather than all at once. A big inhale that is painless. A morning when you don't think of grief initially. A night in which you don't dream about the past. Peace returns in this way, subtly, without asking permission. Regaining trust. Your heart creates barriers to defend itself when someone betrays your trust or when life throws you off balance. However, walls also keep love out, in addition to pain. Restoring peace requires relearning how to open doors. Slowly. With caution. But with courage. Start with trusting yourself. You don't need to trust everyone else. Have faith that you can manage life at this point. Have faith that you will survive, even if it hurts again. As you've already shown that you are capable. And perhaps, just possibly, have faith that despite everything, there are still lovely things in life that are waiting for you. A tale of beginning again. Claire was one of the women. She promised herself she would never fall in love again after her divorce. She was worn out from giving, from hoping, and from being let down. She spent years concentrating on her job, her friends, her interests, anything but love. Then she met a nice person one evening. Without attempting to correct her, he listened. He took his time helping her recover. She first continued to wait for him to go since she had discovered that's what people do. However, he remained. Not because she was flawless. However, she was genuine. She gradually came to the realization that finding the right person wasn't the key to her peace. It was about regaining the guts to be vulnerable. It is through modest trust, not through big gestures, that peace re-emerges. The strength of silence. Sometimes doing nothing is the best thing you can do for your recovery. Simply sit quietly. Take a breath. Because your spirit finally has a chance to speak when you stop making noise with your overthinking, over-explanation, and overdoing. That quiet, steady voice within you? It has always been there. It was simply inaudible above the commotion. And it usually says something straightforward. You're secure now. Giving up the story. You must quit telling yourself the same traumatic tale if you want to restore tranquility. Not because it didn't occur, but rather because it has already occurred. You've already experienced it. You don't have to mentally relive it every day. You create space for fresh chapters to start when you quit practicing your suffering. Although the beginning cannot be altered, the rest of the story can be written in a different way, making it softer, wiser, and more liberated. An exercise in reflection. Sit quietly for a moment tonight. Consider all of your experiences, including disappointments, heartbreaks, and losses. Next, ask yourself, what did I learn from all of this? Not about them. Regarding you. Perhaps it gave you strength. You might have learned patience from it. Perhaps it taught you to love yourself as much as you used to love other people. That's your tranquility, regardless of the lesson. What you keep is that. The kind truth about recovery. You will never be the same person you were before the suffering. It's not a loss, though. Growth is that. The person standing here now is a stronger, smarter, and softer version of yourself. Despite having witnessed darkness, they nevertheless decide to seek for light. You should be proud of that. You can never find peace. It's something you create every day with each little decision you make. When you decide to be kind instead of angry. When you decide not to chase but to rest. When you decide to let go rather than cling on. Peace in action, that is. A final thought. The worst of it has been endured by you. You have confronted your fears, your truth, and your grief. You're now prepared to live, not merely get by. Thus, inhale deeply. You've come a long way. You no longer have to act fake. Nothing needs to be proven by you. You're getting better. You're evolving. And it's happening, although slowly. Because obtaining all of your desires does not lead to tranquility. It results from learning to appreciate what you now have in this moment. And that may be the most exquisite form of healing. We appreciate you taking the time to read wisdom words. Please take a moment to share this story with someone who could benefit from hearing it. And keep in mind that there is no peace. It is constructed. One minor reality at a time. Take care of your heart and continue to choose healing till the next time.